Your parents bought their house at 28. Your grandparents got theirs through a government program, almost for free. And you? You're paying rent, again, for the third year in a row. And here's the thing, this is not your fault. This is the system. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. Let's start with the numbers. Real numbers. 78% of young Americans between 20 and 35 did not expect to buy a home in the foreseeable future. Not don't want to, not are waiting. They simply do not see a way. Let's break down why. Average take-home salary for a young professional in a major U.S. city, around $4,000 a month. Average rent for a one-bedroom in New York, $2,500. And that's if you're lucky. What's left? $1,500. For food, transportation, clothes, medical bills, your phone, your student loan, and yes, saving up for a house. The average home in America costs $420,000. Minimum down payment at 20%. That's $84,000 you need up front. If you manage to put away $500 a month, genuinely impressive by the way, you'll have your down payment in 14 years. 14 years? Just to start. And that's without inflation, without home prices rising faster than wages, and without your student debt, because the average American with a college degree starts their adult life already $37,000 in the hole. To understand why we're here, you have to go back. After World War II, America made a deliberate bet on home ownership. The GI Bill gave veterans cheap mortgages with almost no down payment. The government subsidized suburban construction. Buying a home was real, and it was affordable. It was a political choice. And for decades, it worked. But then, something shifted. Somewhere in the 1980s, housing stopped being thought of as shelter, a basic human need like schools or roads, and started being treated as an investment, an asset, a way to build wealth. And once that happened, the incentives flipped completely. When housing is a home, you want prices to be affordable. When housing is an investment, you want prices to go up. And guess who votes most consistently? Guess who already owns property? Guess whose interests get protected? The people who already own homes benefit every single time prices rise. Every time a politician says, we need to protect homeowners, what they actually mean is, we need prices to keep climbing. Which means everyone who doesn't own property falls further behind. It's not a conspiracy, it's just incentives. Completely broken incentives. In 1980, the average American home cost roughly 3 to 4 times the average annual salary. Today, 7 to 8 times. In coastal cities, 15. The gap keeps growing, and there is no political will to close it. Because the people who vote most often already bought their homes a long time ago. Now let's talk about the mortgage. Honestly, the standard advice is stop renting, get on the ladder, build equity. And look, I get it. In a normal market, that advice makes sense. But let me run the actual numbers. Home price, $420,000. Down payment, $84,000, which took you, again, about 14 years to save. Loan amount, $336,000. Interest rate, 7.5%. That's the reality of 2024. Term, 30 years. Monthly payment, around $2,350. Plus taxes, insurance, maintenance. Another $600 to $800 a month. Total interest over 30 years, $513,000. You bought a house for $420,000. You paid back nearly $900,000, more than $500,000, went straight to the bank. And you know what the hardest part is? 7.5% is not a crisis rate. That is simply the market in 2024. Back in 2021, it was 3%. In 2 years, the cost of carrying a mortgage doubled. And home prices didn't drop. They went up another 30 to 40%. Renting is money down the drain. Fine. But a mortgage at 7.5% is also money down the drain. Just to a bank instead of a landlord. At least when you rent, you keep your flexibility. Nobody tells you this out loud. Maybe this is just how it is everywhere? Maybe this is just modern life? Partly, yes. The housing crisis has spread across the entire developed world. But the severity varies enormously. In Tokyo, home prices today are roughly the same as they were in 1995, a city of 14 million people with stable, affordable housing. Because they simply build. Liberal zoning. Supply meets demand. In Vienna, a third of all housing is publicly owned. Rent is subsidized. A young family pays for a city center apartment. What would sound like a fantasy to most Americans? In Singapore, 80% of citizens live in government-built flats, sold below market rate. A young couple can actually buy a home, not at 45, at 28. These aren't utopias, they have their own problems. But on housing, they made a different political choice. Housing is social infrastructure, like roads and schools, not just a commodity. America made a different choice. Housing is an asset. Let the market decide. And the market decided in favor of those who already own. All right, we understand the problem. Now, what do you actually do? I'm not going to tell you to cut your streaming subscriptions and magically save up for a house. That's an insult. And it's mathematically illiterate. Even if you stripped your life down to nothing, the numbers still don't work. But there are things worth saying. First, stop treating this as personal failure. The data is clear. Your parents had structural advantages you simply don't have. That's not an excuse. That's arithmetic. Stop punishing yourself for a system that was tilted before you even entered it. Second, renting is not throwing money away. I hate that phrase. You know what else is throwing money away? Paying $500,000 in mortgage interest? At least when you rent, you keep your freedom. Run your own numbers. Don't let someone else's talking points make your financial decisions. Third, location is a lever most people refuse to pull. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Tulsa, Detroit, real cities, real infrastructure, where the average home costs $150,000 to $200,000. I'm not telling you where to live. I'm just saying, New York and San Francisco are not the only America. Fourth, think carefully about what you're actually optimizing for. Home ownership is one version of stability, but not the only one. Investing your would-be down payment in index funds for 10 years might leave you in a stronger financial position than a 30-year mortgage at 7.5%. Maybe, maybe not. But run the maths for your actual situation, not the one your parents were in. And fifth, this is political. The housing crisis didn't just happen to us, it was built. Zoning laws that block new construction, tax breaks that reward investment properties, interest rates that rise faster than wages. These are choices made by people who were elected. As long as young people think I'm just not working hard enough, nothing changes. When young people start thinking this system was not built for me, real conversations begin. 78% of young Americans will never own a home. Not because they failed, not because they're different from their parents, but because the ladder their parents climbed was quietly taken away. Knowing that doesn't lower mortgage rates. It doesn't conjure a down payment out of thin air. But it means you can stop wasting energy on guilt and start putting that energy somewhere it actually matters. If this hit home, share it with someone who still thinks it's their fault. See you soon.